Depending on which time zone you're in, good morning or good afternoon. Thank you to Daylight Savings. Just before we get started, or as I'm starting, if you can hear me, please type in yes into the chat, which is on the right-hand side. This is an interactive session, so if you've got questions, comments, please shoot them through. In the meantime, welcome back to the BDSM show, where we're talking all things budgeting, diversification, savings, and, of course, money management. This show is part of our brand new and exciting B project, which I keep saying you'll be hearing about, and I'll be saying it every single time until it's launched. Kind of puts pressure on my developers. My name is Ivan, and considering more and more people are tuning in, I can only imagine you're interested in all things BDSM. Today's presentation, like the ones before it, are general advice only. Well, on the odd chance that you're one of the few people that hasn't heard the news, there's a new hero in town. Today we're joined by John Winters from Superhero. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ivan. Great to be here.
It's actually finally get to talk. But for those of you who haven't heard of John, to be fair, John has kept a very low profile. He started his career in a way that wasn't too dissimilar to mine on the equities derivatives desk at Shaws and Partners. Over a decade, he worked at Macquarie, Black Swan, and then ended up right back at Shaw and Partners as a private wealth manager. And then in 2018, it happened. John realized that Australian investors deserve better, affordable trading solutions that reflect the way that international markets work and significantly minimize the costs. These costs, the Superhero team decided to pass back to their clients and launch this solution as Superhero. So firstly, what a cool name, man. Like, how do you get the domain? How did that happen?
Yeah, it was the domain's one of the proud moments, actually. We found the name just by chance. I was talking to a mate who was a graphic designer, and I said to him, I was like, mate, I really need a name for this business. I was thinking of all of these weird, wonderful things to call it, and he was like, wow, sounds like a superhero. I was like, that is it. We've got it. So I couldn't believe it. He's like, what do you mean that's it? I'm like, superhero, that's it. So yeah. So then I looked. There's so many things to think about when you're starting a business. Obviously the name is a big one, but the domain, the trademark, all of the sort of the added difficulties that come with it. And going through the trademark process was interesting because we came up against the likes of Marvel and DC, which was kind of cool to go through that process.
Good starting point.
Yeah. So we're sort of playing with the big boys straight away. But the domain was actually owned by a financial planner, and he was thinking of starting some sort of super or life insurance business, and he's like, yeah, I don't use it, I'll sell it to you. So we managed to strike a deal and grabbed it a couple of years ago.
That's awesome. Actually, I remember looking up. I remember our API guys were working with you in the background, and just on the odd chance, because we obviously went through quite a big transition on our side as well. And I think you were coming on before Open Markets had its big kind of clean out, if you will. And then one of the guys from the API team, who's actually a full-time trader as well, he goes, oh yeah, hey, these Superhero guys are coming on. And I'm like, who's Superhero? So I tried Googling you, and then nothing came up.
Nothing. Yeah.
And then it did. I love it. It was good. So I'd love to hear the full story about that one day over a beer. But so yesterday was some pretty big news for you guys. You launched free ETF trading. Probably got a little bit washed up in the whole budget thing, although I'm sure that people will be writing about it in the coming days. How did you? I mean, clearly, just one day you decided, you know what, we're going to go free.
Well, I think the market in general is sort of looking at how the US players are structuring their businesses, and it's a very different market there than it is here with pay for order flow and things. So there's different revenue drivers, but the market trend is towards zero cost for brokerage. And through the structure that we've managed to set up and the cost efficiencies that we get, we've been able to absorb the marginal cost that we have through open markets and via the ASX across the business to allow people to make longer term investment decisions. All about making longer term investment decisions rather than short term trading across ETFs. So yeah, pretty exciting. Australian first, and yeah, it's going well. It's going great so far.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that that's where you're going to be pushing as soon as you went and sort of took a competitor that was closest to you and halved their price, and then kind of. I think I saw in the papers you signed up 10,000 people in the first 3 weeks. So you must be blitzing that now.
Yeah, it's been going great. The growth hasn't slowed down either, and people are signing up, and we see a steady number of them continuing to fund their account and start trading as well. So it's great to see a vast majority of them actually active customers as well.
Yeah, I had one of our sales guys signed up to Superhero the other day, and was just blown away by the fact that he could fund the account within 2 hours. Like the whole process was just awesome.
It was probably the hardest piece of the puzzle to get the Pay ID, real time payments through.
Yeah.
And the banks are they've got a long way to go.
I know that.
Let's leave it at that though.
Yeah, we like one of the things that we knew was very broken about the space was account opening, and so we set out to try and improve that. And I thought it was like, it's going to take a month, and it's been like 5 months, and we're still kind of all resources at it. How did you create such an awesome account opening process? Because that's such a big thing where people drop off in that funding phase. So
I guess a lot of it came through my experience at the likes of Shores and Macquarie, and I was heavily involved in listing Zip in sort of the early days of Zip when I was at Shore, and a lot of the employees were coming to me saying, "Oh, like John, let's trade shares," and I would send them an 8-page account form. I'd send them a financial services guide, a PDS if it was required, and then I'd say, go down to the chemist, get your ID certified, post it to the office. And then you can scan all the forms back, and then it'll be a couple of days, get the account set up, and then you can fund your account, which will be another couple of days. And then like by next week, we should be able to put a trade on for you. And they're doing like real-time ID verification, real-time issuing of credit at the checkout just to buy a pair of jeans or something, So crazy, it was almost embarrassing. I thought, no, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to do this. And I'm sort of good friends with Larry Diamond from Zip, and Wayne, my co-founder, is actually good mates with Nick Molnar from Afterpay, and they're both investors in the business. So it's going to be an interesting first shareholders meeting with both of them in the room. They've had a lot of obviously a lot of success throughout their journey, but also a lot of learnings, let's say. And we've seen those and really applied what sort of struggles they've gone through around AML and applied that to our onboarding process. So make it as frictionless as possible, but also make sure that we are ticking all of the regulatory boxes. So we get all of the necessary information to set up an account. We also do full AML ID verification, either in the background or getting ID documents through electronically.
Yeah, and then also the model, and we'll talk about custody versus HIN, because I know that obviously a lot of people have been questioning that and kind of burned by experiences decades ago. But one of the great benefits of that, of course, is that if you're onboarding someone, because it's all in the one place, you can open up an account so much faster. You don't need to wait for the ASX to come back, which is like an overnight process at best. Then it's just the whole thing becomes so much more. We are running a poll at the moment. What do you like most about Superhero? So far, cheap. Well, actually, too late. The guys have just closed it. Cheap brokerage was 40% of the people. It looks nice. Actually, dipped a little bit ahead at one point in time, but just a little bit about 30% of people said it looks nice. 10% said I don't have to passively trade. I don't have to actively trade. Passive investing, and 20% said easy to use. Interestingly enough, I noticed that the way that our guys thought about Superhero when they sort of just started hearing about this is that micro investing came up as a point. And I know that for some of the guys that have been coming through our pipes, the $500 minimum marketable parcel was a thing, which of course through your model you've reduced down to 100. Is that really the space that you're looking at, or are you looking at a much broader audience for people to come in and trade through you?
Yeah, so it's really interesting that my micro investing has popped up, because it certainly wasn't really on our radar as a sort of a key theme. What we want to do is make investing accessible to everyone. So whether you've only got $100 or whether you're an experienced trader, so there's different reasons or different benefits for all categories within the investment sphere. So if you're starting out and you're not extremely comfortable with investing, and you only want to put a small amount of capital in, you can do that through Superhero. So I guess that's the micro investing piece, but also accessible to experienced traders, where they can come on and they can trade however they want or invest however they want, without cost being a hindrance.
I love how one of the things that I noticed, there was a comment on threads and posts, was that, like, I think you guys don't do limit orders or something, and I know the rest of the market, the advisors and the financial planners, proper professionals in the space, most of your former colleagues possibly, don't know what the hell limit order even is, right? So you clearly, press buy, trade the thing, for the $1,000 order you're going to be working.
But I think that's the point, though. The market is more knowledgeable than ever. People understand how the market works and know what they want to do. And just to talk to the point around market and limit orders, there's certainly a segment of the market that just wants to come and put X amount of dollars into X securities. And whether it's shares or ETFs, shares, it's going to be $5. ETFs, it's free. You can come on and say, I want to invest 10 grand into the BetaShares NASDAQ 100 ETF. It will cost you nothing, and the account will cost you nothing to do that. So you just, you allocate a certain amount of capital. Where if you are an active trader or an experienced investor, you're going to want things like live data, which, as you know, has significant ASX data costs associated with it. I think it's about one cent every time someone views a share price. So if you've got 10 shares in your holdings, it's costing 10 cents just to show those share prices. So there's a subscription fee that we put for that, and then it opens it up so you've got live data. But what we've also done is we've added in consolidated tax reporting, which is in the final stages of testing. It should get pushed out this week, which rivals Hub24 and NetWealth. So it's not, we're charging $9 so you can do limit orders. It's limit orders is one of them, but it's really aimed at people who are more experienced, may trade more frequently. And at the end of the period, the tax period, whatever it is, you can click a button and have a full consolidated tax report that gives you all of your realized capital gains, unrealized capital gains, income, franking, interest, all of that, all in one central place. That's
epic, and that's something that I know one of the big issues around the market has been is the access to tax reporting. Because typically you've got to go and a lot of people have different brokerage accounts. There's always a CommSec lurking account somewhere in the background. And then by the time you go and give that to your accountant, then the accountant goes, okay, well,
it's the finding the dividend statements is the hardest one. When your accountant says, where's the dividend statement for the $12.50 you got from BHP? And I don't even own BHP. Where does that come from? And you're scrambling around to find it. With us, it's all in one place. It's all sort of accounted for.
It's brilliant, and also, of course, maybe now's a good time to talk about sort of old model versus new model, because obviously this is something that I know that you guys have received a little bit of flack for, because you're not conforming to the old model, or we'll call it the old model, which is everyone's going to have their own stock. But the net wealth model, the hub model, is to be in custody. The US model is custody. What's the difference? Why are people afraid?
It's fascinating. So there's and it's really polarizing as well. I come from the background where you set up an account, you get a HIN, you attach a cash management account, and away you go. That's sort of the way it's always been done. But if you look at the vast majority of invested assets in Australia, it's all under custody, where there's either a single HIN or a custodial HIN that has been developed. And the regulation around custody models is way higher than just coming and setting up a HIN. And there's good reason for that, because you need to ensure that it is being done correctly. So we are licensed to provide custody and nominee services under our AFSL. There's regulatory capital that has to get applied, like you guys would have as well as a market participant. There's engagement that has happened with ASIC. There's engagement that's happened, and we've got license agreements with ASX to provide it. And certainly, you guys wouldn't have signed it off if we were doing anything wrong either. So, it's been really polarizing. But I think there's certainly a fixation or a mentality in Australia that you have to have a HIN when you're trading shares, and it's a fascinating one, because HINs are 25 years old. Chess has not changed for 25 years, and in fact, the ASX has got hundreds of people spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to replace the whole thing anyway. So we get 12 or 18 months down the path, like no one's going to have a HIN. Yeah. So it's really fascinating, and I think ultimately it comes back to security. I think that's really the sort of the bugbear that people have. But times have changed since the GFC. Times have changed since the likes of Opus Prime, which is significantly different to our business. That was a margin lending business where they were taking assets onto their own balance sheet to be able to get additional margins and additional capital into their business. So it's obviously completely different. And we've engaged with some of Australia's top legal minds and the regulators to put together this structure.
And I think there's so much to unravel, and obviously you've got some pretty serious shareholders that give you access to some of these sort of forward-thinking lawyers that aren't sitting in a dungeon somewhere because they got out there. It's like, when I was a boy, when I got into this dungeon, come on, don't hurt me where it hurts most. I've only moved down from Sydney about 2 years ago. Come on. Oh, really? Yeah. God, I regret that decision now. But anyway, but interestingly enough, so the whole you mentioned the HIN, the chess replacement project.
Yeah.
And that's something that will maybe get done one day. It keeps getting delayed for eternity. Surely that's really going to put us a little bit more into the future and get rid of the, like the charges the charges that you're talking about that you've effectively minimized is in the background. Every time anybody trades on a HIN, effectively the clearing participant to the ASX goes and charges us 90 cents per trade. So obviously you get 100 people trade the same stock, you can bulk it up. That's $90 saving for the day. Multiply that by a whole heap like that. Yeah. That's effectively the model, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The question that people have is then, and obviously Opus Prime, BBY were big drivers of regulatory change, impacted clearinghouses, impacted custodials. So much more capital required now for anybody just to get into the business, which becomes so cost prohibitive. But how actually maybe the real question there is that so you go on and buy assets through Superhero. How does that differ than on HIN? I mean, you're effectively a beneficial owner versus a direct owner. How?
Yeah. So in legal sense, the legal title is in the name of Superhero Nominees, which is a special purpose entity. It doesn't have any operations. It's got regulatory capital. There's no legal right or proprietary right of anyone else over those assets except for the customer. And to liken it to another model in Australia is, if you think of your bank account with a bank, right? They're a licensed deposit-taking institution, and they give everyone an account number, and they allocate your cash to your account. But CBA doesn't have all these little boxes lined up in the bank where it's that's Ivan's cash and that's John's and that's James. It's all in one big pot. And there's account numbers and there's rules and there's regulations that split everything out. And it's the same process with us. So there's audits. We went through a pretty rigorous audit process with PwC late last year. We're actually going through one at the moment with Deloitte. There's, we engage with ASIC on a regular basis, and there's reporting requirements that are required behind the whole thing all the time. So regulations and compliance probably, I would say would be the biggest cost in the business going forward. But in terms of the way the model works, yeah, exactly. But I think, you touched on it in terms of the way the model works. We basically take everyone's individual trades, and everyone trades according to open market's best execution policy. So if you place a trade, it generally hits the market within milliseconds, unless there's an audit or a review on an individual order where it goes to your designated trading reps for manual sort of processing. I think that happens relatively infrequently. It's only if there's a sort of a flag or something. So everyone gets their individual trade, their individual price. But the way that we do reduce cost is at the end of the day, with the help of open markets, we take everyone's BHP trades and settle one contract note to a single custody HIN. And that reduces all of those individual settlement costs, and we just pass those back onto our customers. Yeah,
that which is very refreshing to see in our space. It's all your days in full service broking, I think. That you have to grow a conscience.
It's new though, so people are going to take time to get their head around it. But that's how Robinhood does it in the States. It's how everyone does it. Stake. I mean, has anyone ever asked where your shares are sitting if you buy shares with stake? Or I know Selfwealth's about to launch US as well. It's not really a consideration. You just buy the shares and they're held. And it's I think it will take time. But CommSec has CommSec nominees. CMC Markets has CMC nominees. Shaw and Partners has a nominee account as well. They all have nominees, and they all run these structures, and I'm sure you do too.
We do, yeah. As part of the brokerage thing, you kind of have to. But interestingly enough, I think that I think that there's so much to unravel. Just quickly, just before, because there's a bunch of questions that have come through as well that I want to ask. But for anyone who does want to sign up to Superhero, it legitimately is one of the fastest processes in the country. Very difficult to get the spelling wrong because it's written on John's t-shirt, but superhero.com.au, you can sign up, play around with the platform. A couple of questions quickly just to go through them, and because I've got a few more as well. One question was, is ETF trade discount a temporary promotion?
No, we don't have any intention of having it as a temporary promotion. It's here to stay.
Winner. That was pretty fast. John and Ivan, both you guys and see potential in FinTech in Australia and believe open markets and Superhero will be Robinhood and Webull in US. The company changed people's lives. What's the challenge? How long will it take to scale up to that level?
Well, based on that, it sounds like you and I are going to be competitors rather than partners.
Well, we can. I think what we should do is maybe we should have a chat about that.
Look, I mean, we
let's be a Robinhood that everyone knows, not Webull that no one knows.
Look, I think Robinhood has got a very different business model to anyone in Australia. Payment for order flow is actually illegal in Australia. It's creating a false and misleading market under the market integrity rules. But you have to admire their rapid scale, the rapid growth that they've been able to build. I saw a stat that said in March, back when COVID started to really take off, I think those 3 or 4 most volatile days in the US market, their system went down, so no one could log in. And they found out afterwards that there was a line of code that said that only 150 people could log in at any one time. And over March, they signed up 3 million new accounts. So it was fascinating. So I certainly admire the growth that their business has seen. And hopefully we can do the same thing together.
Yeah, obviously different market, but yeah, and well, it's okay. We'll talk about options and stuff soon as well. But yeah, no, it's definitely a very, very good question. I love how on your LinkedIn, when I was looking through today, there was a line about that let me actually just read that if I can find it. No, anyway, I can't find it. But there we go. Because the market is more advanced than a website from '97. I love the subtle, ComSec / probably everyone being in there.
Little dig, yeah.
Well, you've been
well,
pretty
it was
vocal
funny.
with
We
your
went
digging.
back. We went back and had a look at. We went back and had. I'm going to run out of power, so I'm just going to get my power thing quickly.
That's all right.
One
you
second.
Just expected that it was going to be a 25-minute interview in out. That's it. Gone.
No. I just didn't look at the power level. It was funny. We went back and looked at one of the websites that has cached websites over time, and went and looked at what ComSec looked like in '97 when they launched to '99 to 2003, and it's surprisingly similar today to how it was back then.
I bet
there's been advancements, but it's they've taken the chalkboards and put it on a computer screen in its most simple form.
I love how knowing them, they've probably spent about 10 mil a year just trying to clean up the website.
Yeah.
If I invest with Superhero, will I receive communication from underlying share company, voting rights, buybacks, capital raising? So a corporate actions question.
Yeah, so corporate actions has been a really interesting one. And through the PwC audit, they said to us, like, we need to commend you for what you've done with corporate actions, because if you look at some of the big super funds and some of the big custody providers, they have teams of people in corporate actions, handling entitlement offers and share buybacks and share purchase plans and things. We've automated a lot of it. So when a company pays a dividend or it goes ex-div, if you look in pending on our dashboard, your dividend will be sitting there as a pending payment, and it'll say it'll be paid on whatever date it is. And then when it does get paid, it goes into your activity as a received dividend. It shows you how much you had per share, and there's a dividend statement that applies to that dividend as well. But to answer the question, no, you don't get individual communication from the companies, but you do still have the full ability to participate as a shareholder in all of those corporate actions. So if the sort of the main one that's come up a lot is share purchase plans. How do we, if it's a single entity holding, how do multiple shareholders participate in a share purchase plan? It's actually written into the Corporations Act that nominee and custody providers can participate for their underlying clients, and that's how we've been able to do it. So if there is a share purchase plan that, say, Afterpay launches an SPP, and there's 1,000 people holding Afterpay on the platform, all 1,000 people can participate up to the full extent set by the company in that share purchase plan.
Yeah, right.
So you never know. We may be able to do full. We may be able to do the full share purchase plan just out of Superhero in time.
Maybe. You never know. I think if you pick up the entire marketplace, you're pretty much destined to do it. Paul made a private comment. I won't mention name because he probably was to hide it. But funny thing is that people, mostly market players, worry about custody models, but they've been around for ages, and bear trusts are everywhere. Many retail players are using them and may not even realize it. I love the comment that you made about banking, and how how they, when you go on and deposit money. I mean, they do much worse than that. Ultimately, they take the cash that you deposit into the account and then lend it out. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and hand it out to Fred to go and buy a house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or buy a car or a credit card.
And to be clear, we certainly don't lend out stock. I'm not even sure if you could do that off a custody HIN.
Yeah, we can have a chat about it.
Yeah, we certainly won't be going there.
I think it's interesting. We've spent a fair bit of time looking at margin lending as a concept, and because it's such a cool. Like, there is so much capability around it. It's just, again, looking at Opus Prime, it's just been done in such an unsafe way. Like, I built my life building options risk management systems coming from derivatives, because everyone kind of was up in arms about derivatives are so scary, options are so scary, they're going to blow up the whole industry. And you go, well, yeah, if you do what everyone else was doing, which is, make money 90% of the time, but then in the 10% that you lose, you risk everything and lose everything. Yeah. Goodbye wife, goodbye house, goodbye children. And it's the same thing.
Given the few backers that we've got, it's been interesting though. People have said, you're going to do trade now, pay later. So yeah, I mean, look, margin lending is it's accessible to various people. I think it's not widespread. It's certainly a lot more accessible in the US. I think you can open a Robinhood account and get an instant margin account.
They have it everywhere. Like, you go trade through Interactive Brokers, you get a part of their Reg T is that you get a 2-for-1 ultimately. You get a 50% leverage straight away, which I
need to find a PowerPoint quickly. It's been a busy morning. I was very unorganized where I didn't plug in my laptop.
Hey, at least you've got an office, right? At least you have an office that you can actually come to, unlike us. Someone threw a rock through our window the other day, through our office window, and it's like a refurb building in the middle of Collins Street. And go figure.
Do you offer free brokerage on ETFs?
Do you offer free brokerage?
Why.
That was why. No, this was before. This was before, man. Hey, we're just the utility. Like, give us a break.
I can't believe I've run out of battery. Hang on 1 second.
That's all right.
There we go. We actually just moved office.
Have you traded? There was a poll writing. I think it's probably just kind of lost track of that in our conversation. Have you traded through micro investment apps like Superhero before? 21% said yes, 78% said no. So I'm sure that number will change over time. There's a question around: Have you got any plans for an app or an ETA on an app?
So we're developing it at the moment. Wayne's our CTO, and I've got a more bullish view than he does. He's sort of the realist. I'm the optimist. So I would hope to see it early to mid-November. I think the likelihood is probably later in November. Yeah, so it's not too far away.
Yeah. Awesome. While that's going, when might you consider investing with Superhero? Another poll. Tell us the truth. We will not be offended. First response immediately said yes. So there we go. That's good. Will ETF statements come from Superhero or the funds? You invest in ETFs like anything normal, so that'll just come through from the fund manager. But obviously the tax reporting sits with Superhero, which is awesome. Andrew asks, going fractional, what do you see as the single biggest challenge to achieve that? I've got a few opinions. What are yours?
Well, as far as I'm aware, there's regulations against it for ASX shares, isn't there?
I believe so, yeah.
I'd need to really think about how it's done, because if we sort of start from scratch and you come on and buy 1/10 of a BHP share, who owns the other, who owns the rest?
In the nominee.
So we've got to sort of fund those positions, which is not I don't see it as being a major drain on capital. But it's certainly more complex when it comes to corporate actions and things. Do you have, can you participate in share purchase plans? How does that whole sort of part of it work?
Your structure actually is probably more capable of allowing you to do that, but that would not be beneficial ownership. That would be it would be effectively creating a derivative on the back of that. Yeah. Like a CFD. It's like, investing with emerging markets. I mean, what? But the other question ultimately is, in US, you've got companies that are worth thousands of dollars. Look, Berkshire is a very good example of this. At least there's some benefit, or at least some basis to go on and say, just because you want to be the BSD on the Dow Jones, moving it every time, being in the news, like there's different considerations for it. Here, what's the biggest stock? CSL. And if if it costs you with Superhero $5, with other places up to $20 to go and buy that online for one share, like what's the point? So anyway, I think waste of time. Move on.
Yeah, for Aussie, I mean the average actual dollar price of shares is much lower. So I see that as being, I don't think it's a major detractor for shares at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Question for you is, Jonathan, actually, it's time for bulletproof glasses. Robin Hood got one. Yeah, I think we need to start having bulletproof. Do you guys want to move down to Melbourne? We can share an office. We're about to get a whole heap bigger, so can deck it out, put bling around it, get Trump to design it. He may be out of a job soon. I may have missed this, but when will Superhero be available for trusts and super funds?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. We are working on it at the moment. Everything we do, we want to have a very sort of seamless user experience. So if you think of Apple computers, the hardware and the software just works perfectly. I think Steve Jobs is famous for saying it just works. We want the onboarding process for those entity types to be seamless as well. And there's a huge amount of AML compliance that goes behind, ID verification for, say, a super fund. And if you've got a corporate trustee for a super fund, you're then looking at who the directors are, who the major shareholders are, and there's ID verification that needs to be done on them. For family trusts with a corporate trustee, I've got a family trust. It's got a corporate trustee. Another company owns the corporate trustee, and then my wife and I are the shareholders. So you sort of got to jump back 2 or 3 or sometimes more levels to do full ID verification before you can create an account. And to do that fully electronically is a challenge. And we're certainly up for the challenge. And we hope to roll those out before the end of the year. But you'll be able to come on and you'll be able to open an account for your SMSF without providing any paperwork. It's all done electronically against all the AML requirements.
I know the problems you're going through way too much. But anyway, worth a chat as well. 37% of the people said, I'm interested in investing now into Superhero. 31% said within the next 6 months or so. So the 31%, it sounds like a little bit of a no, but I feel like you should probably just sign up now. Within the next year or two, said 6%, and 25% said never. I'd love to actually find out why the nevers say never. Mr. W said, I came for BDSM tips and tricks. What was that, sorry? What were you saying?
No, I said maybe they'll comment on the chat section.
Maybe that'd be good. If you guys want to type in why never in the comments, would be awesome. Mr. W, I came for BDSM tips and tricks. You guys are talking stocks. What clickbait? We are talking about the M in the BDSM, which is the money. So, but sorry to disappoint you. Will Superhero add other markets? Will you guys add warrants? I'm guessing US at some point in time.
Yeah, look, warrants are tricky. Derivatives are tricky. Certainly for now, it may be boring to some, but we just want to sort of stick to straight equities and straight Aussie equities and ETFs for now. I think foreign markets are interesting, although there's a lot of competition in Australia already for the sort of the share of wallet when it comes to US share trading. And I certainly think that the market expectation around US share trading is that there's no brokerage on it as well. So I think if we were to look at doing that, whether we partnered or built something ourselves, I think the market expectation is zero, and I think it's a good message that if we had US zero brokerage, we've got ETFs at zero brokerage, and then Aussie share trades would still be the $5 mark. I'd love to talk about trade for a gold coin. I'd love that, but yeah, there's a few other sort of cost drivers at play at the moment.
I remember, it must have been years ago. Well, when did Self-Wealth launch? 4 years ago, call it 5 years ago, I don't know. And I remember the typical question in the industry was, what's your next closest competitor? And they said, no, we want to be under 10. That was our vision. It feels like you're going to say the exact same thing to this. Like, the next closest competitor would probably think markets at $8, whatever they are. as a recent launch. Why $5, not $7.50?
Well, we wanted
Sounds
to.
Better.
Yeah. Look, I think yes. Our next competitor is basically double the price to us. So I think if we can deliver, certainly what we think is a better user experience at half the price, those are two pretty compelling propositions. But as I said, I'd love to see us be able to offer, trading for a gold coin. If we could do it for $1 or $2 a trade, I think that would be pretty interesting. And it'll be interesting to see how the market responds as well. How look, CommSec has always been the biggest in the market, and I think they probably always will be the biggest just because they're backed by Commonwealth Bank and XYZ. But I feel like the rise of certainly Self-Wealth and us launching, I think the other banks have got. I think there's pressure on them. It's almost like they've sort of forgotten about their trading businesses. The user experience is certainly at least a decade old, and in terms of price competition, like I think ANZ is still $24.95 to trade. So it's a tricky one. So I think the market, particularly in Australia, is a very large one. So I'm not sort of singling any individual company out. I think it's large enough for us all to compete in a healthy way.
Interestingly enough, this month was the first month we've been closing in on Wealth Hub, which is the participant behind Everywhere and NAB Trade. We overtook them last month for the first time, and we've just really closed the gap on CMC, which does ANZ, and CommSec Advisor Services, which is Westpac. And I reckon before the end of this year, through the growth that you guys are going through, what Self-Wealth is going through on the broader business, we should end up being in second. But Commonwealth is an interesting one because I think that their strategy has always been very evident, which is we really don't care about the trading business. All we care about is the CDI deposits into our custody structure, so that we can take that money and lend it out. And obviously they make much more out of that, than anything else. Someone wants to,
and it's interesting. It's interesting as well that when before we launched, we spoke about what's going to stop CommSec just cutting their fees to go head to head. I said realistically, CommSec is not going to drop their revenue by 75% to compete with some new kid on the block. Otherwise, they would have for Self-Wealth, and they would have for Think Markets. So I don't think. I think that is their strategy. They're not looking to compete.
Yeah. Although, finally they've got a CEO who's actually intelligent and not there just for the paycheck. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure he'll listen to this podcast one day, or webcast, whichever method he listens to it. He did come from the CommSec derivatives. If the path is zero, which I believe to be true, what is the destination? In the US, zero brokerage is now path to wealth management and other financial products. Interested to hear what superheroes end game. And Paul, that probably more than most people on the line. But anyway.
Yeah, so I think share trading is certainly is and will always be a major part of our business. We are not looking to be money managers. We're not looking to provide advice. But could we open the platform up to money managers? Could we open it up to advisors to manage clients' wealth on it? Are there other additional services or products that we can provide that offer a great user experience at a price that can't really be matched anywhere else? And those are sort of the two things that we're always going after: the user experience and the cost. So if there is anything else that we add on, I think those are the two things that will stand out. But at the moment, we're just focusing on bedding down the current business, and we've sort of hit our 12-month target already. So we had a whole bunch in our roadmap that is getting fast forwarded very quickly.
And I think that's probably going to just continue going. We have went over time. I do apologize. I know you've got probably a million things on, as do I. But thank you so much for joining us. For anyone who does want to be on the platform of the future and check out the new hero, superhero.com.au. It's been a pleasure having you on, John. By the way, I don't know if you wanted to ever translate your name into Russian, you'd have the same name as me. But anyway, I'll move the password into English. But anyway, there's a tip for anyone. Being awesome. Actually, finally getting to sit down and chat with you. Look forward to the chats in the future.
No, thanks for having me on, and thanks for all your questions, everyone.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, everybody. See you later.